digital gap. In this case, we're going to talk about digital gap and adults, senior citizens. And for that purpose, we're going to be talking with Verónica Capurro from Inmigrantes Digitales and Magdalena from Fundación Navarro. Thank you for this wonderful space. So welcome, thank you. I remind you, that chair that's different. It's an empty chair. It's a symbolic sign for those. So those who feel you can be part of that conversation, feel welcome to go on the stage and participate in the conversation. When you feel that, welcome. Thank you again. Welcome, everyone. Thank you. The idea is to get started. Or do you want to share the instructions? Flora, who's also part of the design project. The consign is the QR code. You're going to scan that QR code and you will see a question. Do you see that question? Who wants to read that question? A volunteer to read the question? Or we will choose that person. Could you scan it? What can you see on the screen? What words come to mind when you think about digital gap? What's your name? Sandra. What comes to mind when you read digital gap? Please write down your answers. You send them over. I don't know if Lou, we can see the answers. We're going to see some words on the screen. Difficulty, access, teaching, learning, communication, inequality, patience, isolation. There is another question here. Did you see that? Who would like to read that question? This is easy for a young person to carry out digital paperwork without any help. Today, for a person, it's easy to do that paperwork without any support. People don't agree with that. Totally disagree. Disagree and total disagree. There is another question. Which one do you think is the greatest obstacle for senior citizens to use digital services? And here you see some options: lack of access to device or internet, which one do you think is the greatest obstacle for people, for senior citizens to access digital services? Complex paperwork, lack of training, fear to make mistakes, lack of access to devices or internet, and lack of interest. I'll move here. During the last month, we asked help. Did you have to ask help to a person, or a senior citizen ask for your help to do some paperwork online? Yes, most of them. They agree with that. They strongly agree with that. There's one more here. If your answer was yes in the previous question, what did you do in that situation? I did the paperwork for that person. I explained how to do it step by step. Number three, I recommended he should look for help in another place. Fourth, I couldn't help them at that moment. And we're left with, so I will hear you so you can read for us all. Do you remember any situation where the lack of technological skill prevented doing something autonomously? How did it make you feel? Yes, I felt old. Frustration for not being able to sort it. It is what we feel. Well, I started with the computer at home. I installed the software. Wanna With new applications, that happens to me. And I see young people doing things. It's happened to me with Excel sheets. Frustration for not being able to sort out a problem. There is something very interesting. Okay, so let's show video.
autogestionados por personas mayores capacitadas como facilitadores digitales. A través de su apoyo, buscamos reducir las barreras tecnológicas y fomentar la autonomía digital de este grupo etario. Con las consultorías digitales, esperamos que más de 1.400 personas mayores recuperen su autonomía digital. Nuestro objetivo es replicar este modelo en más espacios comunitarios, generando un cambio sistémico en la inclusión social y digital de los mayores. Juntos podemos transformar la vida de las personas mayores. Apoya nuestra iniciativa para que más personas accedan a las herramientas que necesitan. Sumate a consultorías digitales.
Well, thank you. We'll give the floor to Vero so she can tell us about the issues you evidenced with the elderly people to design a solution. Thank you. Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. Floor, we've been working on the design project. There's a presentation. This is to see who we are, digital immigrants. That's an organization I represent. It comes from two challenges. We saw how the progress of technology was leaving behind a group of people. And on the other hand, those with disabilities. We had the index of unemployment was 70%. We combined them two. So what can we do with the disabled people? We're going to enable digital transformation. We work with different values such as participation and autonomy. People have the necessity of being autonomous. Consultancy that I'll talk about today in partnership with other organizations. This is our slogan: we transform lives. How did it start? To tell you about it, you can go to the next slide. Best thing to tell you this is the story about the father of one of our colleagues. During the pandemic, we were asked for digital solutions in different places. Having connectivity and devices was not enough. We have Lalo, who is one of the parents. He was autonomous to carry out his own paperwork online, to do a bunch of things. He was autonomous. There is Lalo. But when the pandemic came, all of those activities that were essential went to be transferred online. One day he felt unwell. He called his health system and they say they couldn't help him because he was released from that system. So for autonomy and participation, what can we do about it? How can we think in a better solution? How can we think on a solution of autonomy and participation? Because for us, access to health, such other rights that theoretically all of them, we should all help. They should be effective for everyone. So we decided to come up with a contest. in a design laboratory with our team some kind of door where every senior citizen who had some kind of problem, whether it's digital or any kind of question for lack of access, they could have a person in person to help them. And so that person could receive their query, learn about their digital rights, and this way help them connect, because we saw there were a bunch of available resources. There were organizations that were dedicated to spend government resources or social organizations, but they were all waiting for the person to come. And elderly people, the barriers, special digital barriers of them, it's so important. That's so naturalized. We see the communication channel saying, tell your son to help you out. So it was difficult for them to think, hey, I can have autonomy in this regard. So we also think that that person that would have to be in that first contact to receive it could be a peer, to see an elderly person on the other side to help them can build that trust. I am digitally autonomous because I am, and I can help you because this is a road that has many obstacles. So that's the start to digital um, welcoming. So Navarro listened to this idea. He said, let's see. We believe this is possible. He trusted. So we created a group of people who worked in the organization. We call them digital facilitators. They went to gatherings in different municipalities where there were many senior citizens, and then people arrived to tell about digital rights and to solve those questions that we received. And last year in 2024, we decided to go beyond and leave this installed in different places. And for this purpose, we went with the government and we told them, hey, we want this to work in the centers of elderly people. I don't know what the day centers are. All right, these are spaces where elderly people can go to perform different activities, to be present. Well, and from there, thanks to Real, we could contact with them, work with the team, and improve this solution, make it bigger. Hmm. And we will tell you how this is going. So we wanted to share with you that this is working today. this has been a challenge of working in this project. We've been here for what, 3-4 years? We started 2021 with a pilot, and we believe there's a lot to do. Vero shared that with us, but truth is, the digital rights are the door for a bunch of rights. So if we do not guarantee people can have access digitally to health services, and at a certain point in time, we had a survey to see which were the obstacles that elderly people had, and it had to do with banks, health, social work, basic things they needed. So if we cannot ensure that first access is there, we limit access to the rest of rights. That's why this is so important as a time like this, in a time like this, digital accessibility, to be able to have these tools. And I keep all the things that you answered. I take home. And here, when we don't have something digital, we feel old. We feel left behind. The train passed by. I missed the train. Somehow, what we try to find with this project is to give tools to senior citizens so they're able to have access to their rights through the use of technology. Those elderly people should be able to show a model of participation, because a big part of those who accompany or lead these spaces of digital consultancy are elderly people. So we're showing them, we're modelizing a senior citizen that looks for us, and we would all get there. They're active people, connected people, and they can help others. But anyways, the challenge is huge, because we've had very good response by the government of the city. The foundation has some very studies. If you're interested into this topic, we have some studies on the situation of elderly people. Every 2 years, we have a report that gives us an outlook of the situation. Our main researcher in Enrique, who's a senior citizen, great part of the statistics, we bring them differentiated by, geographically, of residents. All the information are clear. So Enrique says, if you need to choose, I'm sorry, there are many people that are not from the city of Buenos Aires, but I say, if we need to choose a place to get old, is Buenos Aires, because this is the most, the city with most elderly people, and is considered with services. But this is very well thought to be that. So that what we're doing here. The city has resources. The city has everything, because we have the spaces and everything. And the challenge is how we think about this in different places, that don't have the resources for attention. So that's it. Thank you.
I wanted to continue with that, so I'm going to give floor. The importance of articulating in the future of the initiative. So how do we do through civil society organizations? How can we release those spaces so to somehow, let's say, present and how key it is to involve other stakeholders, other interested parties to cooperate in the coordination of initiatives to sustain them. So, I also to think how this is going forward. What are the steps ahead? Where is this initiative taking us? Thank you. Uh, uh, thank you for the initiative. The truth is that it is worth mentioning that, of course, the state and the city, they joined us. So, so you said, here we have so we have silver economy division. That's where you've heard about this. So the term to refer within the economy, so that represents those people, those senior citizens who are over 60 or 65, 55, and so forth. So so that trend. So so more than 100,000 people we have, but the city has like 3,600,000 people, right? So people are aging anyways at the same time somehow, with a trend to, so where the population of over 60 from here to 60, 30, 20 years, you got a plan, and the employability level, health services, householding, access, mobility, and many other subjects. So, so the state can cover that with the private sector and civil society. Within the city, we have different activities, but we don't reach a great percentage of the 115,000. We have the centers of life that have a limited capacity. So, but we have the most vulnerable population. Citizens over 60 years, we have the retirement centers. So they are self-managed, different to the centers of life. And in all of them, we see population with these problems. When we have the inabilities for the use of digital tools. So the city has implemented different tools in the digital quota. In 2016, we launched Más Simple, a program, but it's not sustainable to deliver and give everyone a tablet device to contact. Okay, from the 2016 up to date, 9 years, we have a greater access to these type of devices, and at that time was not so. No, the device does not solve the problem by itself. We need to train people in the use of that. So the initiative, we have a solution. So that their peers, so perhaps they went through the same situation and they can share that knowledge with um, those who are with us. We have a working access, which is a guiding guide, which is employability. So when we talk about autonomy, so with a purpose, this that is so common when we have you're lucky enough to travel, you have a lot of positions of customer service. These kind of services are these positions are taken by senior citizens who are over 60, but companies not often open the possibility for these positions to not people over 60 but over 45, because for them and for most of the citizens, it's a problem to get a job over when they're over 45. So we have a second round of retraining. That's why we work on retraining for people over 60 and perhaps the age band of 45 and up. So not only it's just about to go with the first stage of the chapter, would be a digital training tool to how to use the home banking, which is something we deem as basic. So people that bring perhaps those digital skills with themselves, because of their life history, and they require them to look for a second chance or undertake any entrepreneurship, and to also to develop knowledge and greater skills. There we have, of course, they count on us not only to facilitate a way of life, but people who are going to be there, but we have more people. We have and non-satisfied for this need. It's another subject. It's okay. It's like solitude does not desire. So the state has here, but so we don't have this type of facilities to get together. Okay. We had a note on the use of devices to somehow palliate or remediate a little bit that solitude. We think that autonomy, the purpose of life, is linked to those who really want to do that. People apart, some people who work all of their lives, and some of them they just want to do volunteer in that sense. But we have a lot of elderly people that because of economic reason, even if they are retired, they still need to work because perhaps they don't have the requirements or the skills that the labor market requires. So the state, along with the civil society and the private sector, we need to think about a solution. This is not magic, of course, and they have to develop a very painstaking work. We have some companies with some initiatives to keep or recruit uh, senior or a silver talent. So it's in the teething stages. So we have the youth also. They have a problem. They ask for young people who have a lot of experience, so it's difficult to get. So we need to value experience. We have people who already have 25 or 30 years of experience, and that job, that intergenerational contact between 20 and 40 years of age, and the person who is already say within the labor market. So from our part, the state, we have double responsibility in the sense that we need to generate incentives and perks so that companies may hire all people over 45, 46 in the city of Buenos Aires. So there is not a framework law for the silver citizens with fiscal initiatives that you know pretty well in the city of Buenos Aires. So I don't want to get you bored with this, but we need to have a legal framework in which we can work. I mean, the city would charge us, but we need to work with senior citizens and include them in other economic development initiatives, and that's worked pretty well for in different stages, so where they could take credit for that important aspect. So, uh, so, so we cannot reach that the joint work. So in the state, so we come from a change of structure. So this initiative and others are being submitted so they could have sustainability, to have so also to work with scalability. Not only the ones um, in those 715,000. No, but we need to reach one of those policies to reach them, to need to escalate to reach more people. Thank you. No, thank you, Gonzalo. There we could replicate. So we also have innovation. Before we close this space, let me remind you. I don't know if someone would like to have a question or comment or compliment. Floor, you were part of the team. Thank you very much. So shall I sit here? Okay. For the college chair. Okay. So I just wanted to thank you for the joint work and for the accompaniment for 6 months with real, with weekly work. So we needed to be in all of the meetings, and at the beginning, it was difficult to understand that. So the points of views were different, and the innovation programs. So to develop the job of exchange, to understand the initiative that was in the marketplace, also to work marketplace, and really, and to value this because our follow-up friend and partner was Sebas with the tool. Uh, Also working with the day centers and with the senior citizens and silver citizens. So we're going to work with change networks with the different stakeholders who have the same challenge, so we could contribute to those solutions. And that's a tool of change networks. So we hope to continue sustaining them so that other organizations may also contribute. Um, Thank you very much. Thank you. I am Josephat. So I want to thank you for the presentation, really. So this is a question that's quite critical or critique I would like to contextualize. Hmm. I work in an NGO, so I did to start that 4 years ago with Conecta Mayor. It was looking for so that they should have access to all the devices with Rentel, which is the main communications company in Chile, with Conecta Mayor Foundation, born at the Catholic University. At municipal level, we delivered 1,000 special devices that were big enough and so forth. And one way or another, the big challenge we had with implementation is that the devices were not being used properly. Many of us who kind of already deal and manage all these digital parts, so people are not accustomed to this new digital world. And there I have two questions myself. The first one is, what is the reflection when we invite people to these digital world? What is our expectation that we have? So people may experience this in this other world that did not belong to them. So there are some people who have experienced that, but even for us, it's difficult to get into the digital world. So it's increasingly we have more novelties, new creation. We have Facebook, we have Chat GPT. So we increasingly have more. I would like to listen what's the life relations because, for example, at least in Santiago, which may be similar to Buenos Aires, we have a relation that's somehow harmful in terms of mental health because of the excessive use of digital tools and the concentration of life in that space. And finally, the aspect of autonomy. So I think that it's on the contrary. We work with people who have certain intellectual handicaps. So the inability in general. And so in reality, we need more cooperation. The autonomy is right in the individual and the person. To what extent do we demand from that person to continue developing this? Perhaps we need as a community to accompany. So we generate all the sense that even if so we have all the paperwork at public service level, and clearly with the government in Buenos Aires, you have electronic work, right? So how to think about this job? To talk about that. So we have a consultation. We have 2 questions. The first one, so we have the first pilot had to do with that. So so we should be in the places that naturally are there. So that's why so have to work there because the cap is so natural. So it's a tendency, right? So that they need to return the trust that they should do. So the consultation they receive about the device, they have to do that. First, they have to do that. So they need to ask for a challenge that has to do with solving autonomy. I have to tell you that. So I went to talk to my child. So oh, come here, you learn. Mm, So then he goes, he talks to Pepe, who's in another city. You know what? I want to ask you something because my daughter-in-law tells me that this is the best time she wants me to help her with my house. So what do? We articulate so we have a volunteer or someone who may provide her an answer, a valid answer. We also think about their autonomy. We have different situations, right? We have the need of the senior citizen. Today, it is a goal. You have to come up from the curiosity standpoint. So I work and well, the approach of technology should go a little bit behind. I don't know. If you have 90 years of age. I mean, it's going to be more difficult. It's not the same if you're 60. But we socialize. The objective for us is to develop their autonomy. And also people who had certain level of handicap. So we came, the essence of immigrant, we have to generate um, opportunities of work for those who have any type of handicap. It could be motricity or let's say intellectual. But well, our teachers, our tutors, we one of the requirements was that they had that sensitivity to work with them, to work with those with that population. I'm sorry. We have to see the issue here is the accessibility. Well, we gotta start closing the. Right. One told me about the expectation is that technology would not exclude. I would say, okay, I would love to tell you the autonomy is this. That would not exclude them, isolate them. They already isolated. Many cases, the technological improvements with the best of intentions to automate, to make things faster, to speed things up. I mean, these where there was new I mean, there are concepts that have an effect in these people. So sometimes they generate frustration, isolation, exclusion, and depression, solitude, and so forth. It's like a domino effect. I mean, the key here is not to exclude them. So it's not about a Facebook or Instagram course. No, those are not the digital offices or advisory offices, we call consultancy offices. So we need to have a place or a space that's accessible and permanent. It's not that I just gave you a training course and I leave you on your own. No, that's not the way, and that's not the case. Some people have some difficulties in the learning process. So if you don't practice that, you forget about it. So you get Zoom, you have to take all the virtual trainings. If you don't do that all the week, or you want to register yourself in the next Zoom test, you see, I'm telling you, I cannot do it. I'm old. I can't do that. No, we want to avoid that type of situations with this project, not to generate more exclusion, in which naturally, yeah, despite of our efforts today, we have that difficulty because of the age. Well, sometimes every week we need to provide 2 hours at least. Day 27, we had a workshop of technology. It was a content for everyone, but not everyone was ready to take it. But we open, we talk about rights. Okay, what is the challenge you have in the digital world? And each one of them brings up a subject or an issue they need to solve in that space. So we give an answer there. So, right, that's even to work there with that. So we'll start closing. Gonzalo, you have 30 more seconds to wrap up. Regarding your question, was an individual project of life, an interdependence and peer program. So we have an individual session. We try to eliminate not all of them, but most of the barriers and hurdles, so that the person may choose a life project after 50 or 60 years of age, be we working or volunteering, but they may have from the state some help. That's that. Okay, team, I would like to close with a short video. So we're going to start with that point.
Nosotros a través de la Fundación Navarro Viola, junto con Inmigrantes Digitales, ya hacía un par de años veníamos haciendo distintas actividades en lo que es lo digital.
Venían a nosotras y nos decían cómo podemos
they came to us, they told us, what can we do to perhaps shorten the times and get your appointments, for example. It's very important for us to get to know, so we can learn. We could also teach people who are like us, so you can teach people of our age. It's not just to do the paperwork. We had as a reference our teacher Alejandra. All of us work together, finding solutions so that people who approached us with some questions would not leave with their hands empty. You realize that in general they help um, they hear other people, our partners and neighbors. Something that for us was something like a fool for a partner was very difficult to do. The use of cell phones, for example, and a senior citizen, as she didn't know about one of her children. We looked in the social media for her son through CUP for the federal police search of people tool, and two different tools that we found among what we have learned, we were able to find and contact the person we were looking for, and we did that bridge. I felt useful. I felt proud of myself when we were doing the course. We said, okay, we can do with all this. We can do it. I mean, I've learned a lot. So this is another step in life. So it was a lot about me, myself. No, but now I'm with this system that it's integrated. I am all solidar with my partners. Okay, team, thank you very much. Now we'll continue with another activity. If you need to get up, stretch your legs to grab a coffee or something, we'll come back with democracy for everyone. Okay, I'm glad I have mate, all right? Okay. Okay, let's get settled. We'll continue now. I kindly ask you to please take a seat. So, hi there. So let's return to our tables. So as you can see, you still have some markers, pens, and now we're gonna go in a workshop mode. Welcome all of you, those of you who have just arrived. We are on the second day of the Global Democracy Coalition Forum for the Americas. This forum is Democracy for All. So, to present this space, we have two special guests, participants on local innovator programs. So we have Roberto Almeida, so Director of Culturia. Robert, you're going to introduce yourself, and Karina Sanchez, the Director of Handicap in Junín City in Buenos Aires province. So thank you, Karina, and thank you, Robert. And I'm going to ask Karina and Robert Bao to tell us a way, a pathway. So we may know the user pathway. It's a tool that we use a lot. So when we design initiatives, undertakings to understand how the route of user is. I mean, to call about the painful points, Carrie and Robert are gonna tell us two user routes so that he can have the opportunity to introduce yourselves and greet. So Robert, you want to share with us what you have? Yes. May he please use the microphone so we can listen to him and interpret because we are not able to listen to him. So apparently the microphone is not properly connected. And it's not enough to listen to the person. Sometimes we can listen to him, and sometimes we cannot. I'm sorry about this. So, so, uh, so we have the last way out. Hi there, this is the interpreter, but we're having a problem with the microphone that is not working. But now it's been fixed. I had the opportunity to go to Buenos Aires. So I felt the local population. So I went to so these receptivity from the city. So we have a structural part, so conduct part. So so this doesn't happen everywhere. That takes me to work with inclusive um, tourism, the strengthening of initiatives in all the Americas. So we have been working there for over 40 years, doing these that I'm talking to you, this facilitation, this opportunity that we have. We have registered that we have more than 800 million people, almost a billion people with a type of handicap. So that travel every day. So Latin America, the Caribbean is also as the teething stages. So we need to strengthen ourselves and to assimilate this. So people can reach Argentina, Brazil, Chile. So this step by step, tourists with certain handicap, we have a lot to do. On this connection with different organizations. So that's why I'm here, listening to these people with this panel, with technology, access to technology. So in a few years, I'm going to be an elderly citizen. So what am I going to do with the technology? Those connections here. So in RIL here, these spaces are very important for this process to develop this. This is a whole fight there. It's a struggle all of the time. Thank you, Robert Mao. Now we're gonna stay and grab that pathway. We have person with inability, a person, excuse me, any sort of handicap. So we welcome Karina Sanchez. So and Junin. So Kari. So so a person with uh, some sort of handicap who wants to work. So there is democracy for everyone. Democracy is not a way of government. It's a right. And what does it mean to express ourselves, to choose, to build? And for that, we need to be able to do it and to be able for that. So how we move around in the world, in life, working. So personally, this is the only way that you get to know and be able to travel. So a person with a handicap wants to be part of democracy, so part of the system. How do we do it? If it's up to their family, so first that person has to know that he or she can do it. So that starts in the years. It was when you were a teenager or an adolescent. So you have to know the desire, and then to train yourselves, and then start looking for a job there. So you have another stage. The person takes care of him or herself. So to be able to train, so uh, so you find all the barriers. So you have barriers in transportation. Um, when you look for the unemployment, you don't find you have some barriers. You have a lot of type of, for example, you have a visual, you have the catch app, so you can log in with as a person. And how to get enter. We don't know how to enter. So you see that, and that's how it is. So first, well, it's good. I'm there. So my curriculum. So the year that comes, how do we form the company? So the person has autism, they doesn't need the so so the person has to get busy, and the person have to train. We have different trainings. We have millions of barriers. So to close this, the attitude. We have to open your mind. So we have Karina, I have a profession. They have this profile. The company want this profile. So you got to be pretty good, and you have to hire me. Am I good enough? Okay, hire me and pay me, right? Uh, so so you have motor capability. So you have the toilet. It has a lot of things. You have got to get them out. So you have a problem with attitude. So this is the pathway of the user. So a little bit to work with the others' mindset. Well, and after this brief introduction, so we're gonna be working. So we're gonna have these democratically. So these are the tables here. We're gonna choose this. So we're gonna have a person with handicap. Uh, so a person with handicap who would like to travel. These two tables here. So and these are people traveling. So people. So a person traveling here. So we're gonna go there. I'm gonna ask you. So so we like to work with a tool that Flor talked about it. It's the empathy map. This is a tool we use as part. Uh, so the first 3 months of initiative is to understand the problem we have. To understand the problem, so you have to be able to work and experience the problem. Uh, so we talked about this and validate our hypotheses. This is exercise. So we have a person in the center, and we try to put ourselves in the shoes of that person. So that person has to think what that person thinks, and to listen to what that person thinks, to say what that person says, and see what that person says. So Robert says, "So what do you hear, right? So what do you listen to when you get off the plane?" So in Karina's shoes, right? So uh, so we have 15 minutes more or less to do that. Okay. So then we have a reflection moment to validate our hypothesis. So to share the experience, right? Yes. So my question to those who were there. So okay, how are you going to work with that? Right? Okay, it's the four of us. Okay. And see also, right? Okay. So Nicolás from Costa Rica and San Jose. It's pretty small, right? Hey there, hey there, hey there, hey there, hello? Okay. Hello? They split up in groups and we can, they disconnected the micro. They're starting work in the tables, around the tables. Hi there. How are we doing in the in the work we're developing the tables? How's it going? Okay. Hi there. Hi there. May I have your attention? Hi. Okay, we'll continue now. How did it go? What about your job? Okay, we had two tables that had an advantage, rounds and carinas, row balls and carinas. We're going to choose two tables in which we don't have carrying nor rubber ball. So raise your hands, please. One here, another one here. So okay, please raise your hands here. Okay, there you have. Okay, so we have these two tables. We're going to share a little bit what the table came up with in the discussion. So how did it go with the exercise to wear the shoes? So we think that it was pretty well, to my understanding. So what you think and feel? So we all think that we feel some type of fear, lack of self-esteem, and sometimes many prejudice about people who are going to hire them. They have like these bad concepts, right? Prejudgments. So we have to prepare ourselves to hire a person, and we are not prepared as a company. That's what they see that. We see that companies did not hire people with any level of handicap. So we were not properly trained. Uh, they feel fear and rejection. I am capable. What can to do? I can do it. I can do the job. So I'm sorry. So, and the painful part is not to have the opportunity to demonstrate the skills that he or she is able to do there to develop the potential. Inequality, is there, but um, he or she aims to do the job just like anybody else, to be accepted and hired without any biases. So naturalizes the fact that um, they want that to be accepted. It's normal. Okay, so this other table here. So we have a person with a handicap looking for employment and a handicapped person who's traveling. And the question is, what you think of what we have uncertainty, labor, isolation, solitude. Yeah. Well, now how am I going to take the fly? Is anybody going to help me? Solitude, uncertainty, enthusiasm to travel, and then fear and uncertainty, insecure. Yeah, the think and feel what they should do.
Well, thank you. Thank you all the tables for the work. And with this, we are going to go back because as you will see, effectively, Carrie and Robert had those experiences. They went through these experiences and they put their own experience at the service of finding a solution as I said, you too participate in the local innovators by going through a process and having this problem very, very clear and defining the problem and finding solutions, trying to offer a proposal to solve these problems. Now you have these, Robert and Carrie, to tell us about your proposal for solution. Thank you, Carrie and Robert. I welcome you again, Carrie. If you want, let's start with you. Hello. Well, as truth is, I want to congratulate you. Everything that you've shared with us. In some cases, we have the look of the person with disabilities. I really enjoyed the proposals. In our case, well, I work for the government of Junin, and along with an NGO. Well, Claudia had to leave the room, but we think we see the project, we see inclusion, work inclusion for people with disabilities. And why work inclusion? Well, talking about what it is, democracy. And as people, we have a lot of rights. We have thousands of rights, the rights to education, to everything, to thousands of rights. But work is a right. You know, Robert, I really like, if you don't have a job, you have no money and you have no contacts, if you have no social lives. So work allows you, first, it dignifies you. Second of all, it allows you to know other realities and obviously to be the livelihood of family, of yourself, to thrive, to compete in many things that make the day-to-day life. So that's why we took this project of working in accordance with independence with our project, taking into account this, that there is a more protected, there should be a more protected work, a cooperative organization. There are other things that are more organized. And so on the one hand, it's easier, but on the other hand, you are left in a sub world. So what we aim at is work or labor inclusion. The project is called I Want, I Can Do It. It has to do with going through a path to be able to walk a path, to be able to, well, this project was one of the most highlighted projects. I'm very thankful to the organizers because I think our project, they consider our project was viable. And we started to work with the Network for Change. The network, well, as we talked yesterday, first of all, we tried to involve many factors: the state, the companies, obviously people, disabled people, handicapped people, and their families, and different actors, social actors. What happened here? We started to realize that one of the a great barrier is family who don't want or who don't allow. So we start to understand we need to go a little bit backwards so that a person with disability can work. We need to start from a young age. That family need to think when that person, as that person is growing up, as that child is growing, they can study. They have possibilities, and they should also know that there is a person where they need to go independent. And sometimes families see them as eternal children. Then you have a pension. That's a great barrier. Families sometimes pensions when a person is a child with disabilities and the resources are not enough. Well, we can work with the social pension, and that in our country, at least in our country, when you have a pension, you can't have a formal job. So in the eyes of fear, the changes, fluctuations of the market. Once a person would like to have a safe salary or going to real life and to go very far in life. That's a difficult decision. That's another barrier. Another barrier are the people with disabilities themselves, and many Many are fearful. Many have a lot of fears. Yes, I study, I trained, some people even have post graduates and everything, and they keep on studying and studying, and they're never willing to find a job for fear of rejection, to be told no. So they have a lot of master's degrees but never went through a internship. So there are other people who are entrepreneurs, and they see a lot of closed doors. And as I said today, they go to a company and the company says they don't have that social responsibility. The company is not adapted. When we remake the company, that would be possible. So our project has to do with the training for handicapped people, to train their families as well, so they can let them go, and the company person as well. So they should know that hiring a person with disabilities doesn't mean any type of generosity. It's just about hiring what I'm looking for, that the tools exist in the market. It's just about finding those tools, but everything has been invented. Accessibility exists for everyone almost. So it's about finding the person that can give us accessibility. People, professional people are who work with certain alliance. So the alliances, so everything is accessible to include people and to a company, to give support to the person and the company in that first time, in that first training, in that first training. It all implies a team of professionals. So inclusion is real. So it's not an inclusion to comply with the numbers, to say, yeah, we are inclusive, even if the person is serving coffee or just talking and not doing anything. The job has to be real, genuine, competitive, and the person needs to give a value, an added value to the company. It's not just about hiring them. And that's our project goes in that direction. We are implementing that, and it's going slowly. As I said, there are many things to work on, but we've been able to have inclusion, and we're very happy. We're very satisfied, and that's it's about going little by little, and we prefer a real inclusion and not 10 inclusions for the picture. Thank you, Karen. Thank you. Well, Robert, if you'd like to go next and tell us about your initiative. I always like to talk about my trajectory as a person, so that in the future we can dive into my organization. I'm a biologist of conservation, and for many years I continue working with great carnivores. I'm a specialist in jaguars in the tropical forest. So I believe now the person who understands the most of jaguars on planet Earth. I've been working with Costa Rica for 30 years, and thanks to this job with jaguars in the forest of the South Pacific in Costa Rica, I acquired this ability. How? They transmit toxoplasm. It's a small bug that affected me. Toxoplasmosis affected my whole system of my body, but principally my visual capability. Toxoplasma is a microorganism that was hosted, stayed in part of my retina, and it damaged my retina. My retina went out of place. So I have the capability to receive the image, but my brain cannot read this image. So uh, that life with jaguars takes me to that disability 20 years ago in the forest of Costa Rica. So within this world of disability, it's a world that we face, and we see have a lot of barriers. We have a lot of obstacles, and a person that does not understand capabilities do not understand this world. I, as I had no disability before, used to look at people with disability, but never understood their world. I never knew why these people were going through. So when I got this disability, I continued working in the forests of the southern Pacific of Costa Rica, and I found these obstacles and many more, much more severe, because those were not obstacles of the cities. I was in the city, far in the natural world where there is no accessibility. So it was very strong for me. I didn't want to go back to the urban center. I didn't want to go in the city. I stayed there in the forests of Costa Rica. And I started to observe people with disability in this rural world, natural world. And I said, hey, how do they live, those people, in this world? This different world from the urban world. How can people live on a wheelchair or with different intellectual or different disabilities in this natural world? And I started to see, and I found a population, and it was shocking. I saw people that were were helpless, far from government assistance, and that had an impact on me. I'm suffering, but I still have, I come from abroad. I have my studies. I have some differentiated skill, but these people, they have no education, no health services, no job services, no recreation, nothing. So I started to worry for them. That's where the idea came from, to create an organization in the forests of Costa Rica for these population. And this organization started to find those gaps in terms of health, education, jobs, and then we see the necessity of recreation, something that I didn't even expect. Well, we did a diagnosis with these local population. People said people said our necessities are health, education, and then recreation appears. We want recreation, so I hallucinated. These people had so many basic necessities. What do they think about recreation? This gives me an idea. This was in 2009, 2010. And it gave me the idea. Yes, I like to travel. I like to do tourism. I like to travel. And I like this natural world where I live in. So that integration of two things, and I created a program, ecotourism, that's accessible, a pioneer program for Central America, for Latin America, a program that elevates people with disabilities on this natural world. So for me, it was a huge challenge to start a work with inclusive tourism within a world that's totally inaccessible, which are forests, mangroves, not natural national parks. For me, it was a huge challenge, but also was gratifying because I learned a lot more than working in an urban center. How can people like as my colleague with disabilities are can survive, or can how do they do or a person on a wheelchair within a mangrove or a natural park? So I started to create this idea since 2010, and ever since, as a pioneer in Central Americans, a pioneer in Latin America, with the idea of Ashoka. And Ashoka appears in my life during the pandemic. Having the whole experience during the pandemic, Ashoka fishes me or takes me and asks me, "Hey, do you have any opportunities of having or exposing your ideas, your initiatives, and beyond the South Pacific?" So I dive in I started to play this game, and I was chosen as Fero Ashoka, and I work with Conturia Stars, the Association of Inclusive Tourism for the Americas. Not only strengthens inclusive tourism in Costa Rica and in the forest, but throughout South America. It's a huge challenge. I come from Canada all the way to Tierra del Fuego, doing this, strengthening this campaign. We're promoting, I don't know, 38 countries. Right now with Turia, Turia works with our representatives, with our connections in Canada, Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama, Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Chile, and Brazil. And there's a lot to go. How much time or how much time do I have to do this? And I'm not even getting to the Caribbean. Can you imagine all those Caribbean islands, Jamaica, Haiti, Dominican Republic, and all those small islands that are countries? With Turia, we have that mission. I cannot take this by myself, on my own. I cannot do it on my own. It's a crazy thing. It's been crazy already what I'm doing. And 12 months of the year, I spend 8 months out of my house. I'm promoting this with my fingernails. Because I cannot help everyone. But this job with Conturia is a gratifying job. I come to Argentina. The idea of having a representation in Argentina is born. I'm looking for this connection in Argentina to represent Conturia. This is the way we do. We have these spaces throughout Latin America with our peers. And the way we have action lines, we work with some action lines. First, public policies, and we cooperate in public policies and some changes in some countries. And Salvador, for example, we're working with the implementation of a regulation or a law of inclusive tourism, and specifically of inclusive tourism. We work in doing inclusive training with courses and these type of challenges, and the way we train people that will be working with inclusive tourism with a more Latin American look. As I would talk with Jaffa and everyone, the courses and that show that appear, they come with an European look. It has to be with architectural structure. In Latin America, we have another concept of inclusion, and we have the search of destinations. We have another marketing line that's opened on how to market these different destinations in different places. And the last one, which is the idea that I try to get to, which is the certification. We have some certification should be inclusive. So we are working with Conturia. This is our struggle. This is our service. This is our will. Thank you so much. Well, with this space, we've been talking since the early morning about digital gap and senior citizens, and now we're talking about people with disabilities and accessibility and the design of public policies of projects taking into account those people who are going through the problems. On this exercise we had today for the empathy map had to do with all that. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Karina, for your experience. Thank you for your job, for your hard work, for everything you've been doing. Let's keep on working with the initiatives and respecting them and growing them. And with that, we close this space, and we are going to have a little bit of a space for another type of conversations that have to do with the citizenship and decision making. And for that purpose, we have Ina again, that she's our director of global innovation. And she'll be telling us about another initiative. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Kadi. Thank you so much, Karina and Robert. It's really very inspirational to listen to you and your stories and your testimonials of concrete solutions that have to do that take into account these challenges that are so close to us, and the power that it has when a challenge, when a solution shows a challenge that mobilizes, which has a domino effect, combining with other organizations and having a huge impact. The power of concrete solutions that cover challenges identified by their protagonists. So now we will listen to Christian Mendes. He's a protagonist of a very inspirational project, a protagonist of a solution with an incredible impact. But it has to do with this, right? To sort out or facing challenges that are worth facing. Governments that are open to understand what are those challenges that we need to sort out. Where do we have to put the priority? How can we prioritize existing resources of our communities to attend to what people cares for, where their concerns and attention is focused? So it's a great honor to present the Piojo, the Christian. The floor is yours, sir. Well, thank you. Thank you, Ina. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ana, for the invitation. I'm very glad to tell this story on the way we worked in San Miguel and how it started, how Ojos Sin Alerta started. You saw that. You saw in the media. You saw in a municipality. I'm Christian Mendez. I'm an official worker for 12 years. I'm Subsecretary of Communications, Secretary of Public Issues, and Secretary of Government. And almost 9 years ago, I started with these initiative where I hear you talk about how to involve the neighbors in public policies. I think that's what we did. We have 5,000 employees. With that, we do a lot of things. And when citizens that have 300,000 people, and that's what it's all about, our project. So to tell you about this, the best thing is to tell you the story of how this is born. In 2010, we make the decision of taking charge of this public security in San Miguel. For the right is persecution of right, investigation of crime. But before it goes to public health prevention, the municipality has to do that prevention. Nobody can say no, and we take charge. We take responsibility of something. Two things happen. The first thing is money, resources, economic resources, camera, guards, and there's the second thing. And that's what we did. We created the public municipality. We bought some cars and cameras. We bought patent readings. We had a monitoring center. 4 years later, year 2014, we had an efficient system of security and started to work. People that were there, we covered them, we solved the problem. And then we said, how can we have more calls? We realized that with a card and put in the number everywhere, people were not calling us. So you know why they were not calling us? Why? Because people don't trust. No matter they see that, they don't trust. And what we did was we had a WhatsApp number. WhatsApp does not generate trust. So everyone was, we gave the WhatsApp number to, we gave them a training, a very simple training, very quick training. That's what I'm going to do with you in 9 minutes. I'm going to do this training with you to try to convince you to be part of this initiative because we need communication, a lot of communication. Without communication, we don't have anything. For that purpose, we need to convince, not of teaching how to use WhatsApp, convincing people. And what is this training like? Imagine that you are in your city. Someone from your municipality comes and says, raise your hand. This is who's called 911. Who's called 911? 3, 4, 5, 6 people. Generally speaking, it's between 5 or 10% of the room. We're talking about, I was in Mexico and I was in Australia there. And in the middle, I was in Peru and Colombia and different countries, Paraguay, Uruguay, Chile. So that's the case. No more than 10% call. Now tell, How many people have seen an emergency, an accident? We've seen something like, we've all seen something like that. We don't need more people. We need communication. No more police officers. We need more communication. You're not given that information. We went to get that information. What is the objective of ICE with alert? Try to combat all the crimes we see. But now we have a problem. 60% are not denounced. Here's a video of the obstacles of a neighbor.
Y bueno, llamar al 911, que vos llamas al 911 y el 911 te hace una telenovela antes de atenderte. Y no, le digo, atendeme, manda un bomberos, ambulancias, manda que volcó un micro con criatura, después me llamás y me interrogás todo lo que quieras, le dije. Y le tuve que cortar. Me volvió a llamar, digo, por favor, manda la ambulancia, hay chicos que están gravemente heridos, volcó un micro con criatura. Bueno, hizo eso y después me volvió a interrogar a ver si yo había llamado. Sí, le digo, sí. Pero tendría que ser más eficiente, más directo, más rápido. En vez de interrogar, atender la emergencia y después interrogar.
You should cover for the emergency and then you ask me the questions. Do you
Necesitaría que me manden un móvil, porque hay unos sospechosos que están dando vueltas en un auto. Pasaron varias veces y no son de acá. Estoy en la calle Tupac Amaru y Rubén Darío.
Podemos tener una cámara por metro cuadrado, pero la visión de esa persona no la vamos a tener nunca, y es inteligencia real, no es artificial. Esto es mucho más importante. Vamos con un caso real de los que pasan todo el tiempo en San Miguel y en más de 64 ciudades en Argentina. Miren.
Hola, escúchame. Fíjate que hay dos flacos que vienen por Serrano, entre uno de campera azul y uno de celeste. Fíjate porque están... Se quiere meter, se le meten a la casa, a robarle. Ya le robaron la bicicleta.
Teníamos las cámaras, teníamos los patrulleros, teníamos la lectora de patente, teníamos el centro de monitoreo, un montón de plata puesta por el municipio. ¿Persigamos o no persigamos a nadie? ¿Qué faltaba? La información del vecino. Lo único que faltaba era gratuito. Lo fuimos a buscar, lo conseguimos y resolvimos un problema. Hoy en San Miguel tenemos 150.000 personas que tienen ojos en alerta, que es el acceso directo a un contacto de WhatsApp. La mitad de la población adulta. No se nos escapa nada. Esto significaron más de 3.000 alertas mensuales que es un mapa del delito, es información. Información que toda es muy valiosa. ¿Qué es Ojos en Alerta? La generación de información gratuita de parte del vecino que lo involucraste, lo hiciste parte y le diste importancia. Esto es Ojos en Alerta, la NASA. No es la NASA, es una pantalla con un celular y no le sale plata al Estado porque es gratuito, porque esto es una iniciativa municipal que se le da a otros municipios gratuitamente. Lo compramos en Houston, Estados Unidos. No, lo compramos en Garbarino y en cuotas. Porque no tiene nada especial. En San Miguel bajamos el delito de robo automotor, hurto automotor, robo motovehículo y homicidio, que son 4 delitos que sí o sí se denuncian, entre 50 y 75% en los últimos 10 años en San Miguel. Esto es real. Yo les puedo decir que bajamos el arrebato en vía pública, pero el arrebato en vía pública no se denuncia. Esto sí o sí se denuncia por el seguro. Hoy tenemos 64 municipios en 12 provincias y más de 700.000 ciudadanos que tienen esta herramienta. Y el lunes firmamos un convenio con el gobernador de Córdoba, Yarlora, para 30 municipios más. Y estamos todo el tiempo sumando municipios. Yo la semana que viene estoy en Colombia, la otra estoy en Uruguay. Seguimos viajando y mostrando esta herramienta colaborativa. Acá viene lo más importante, ya voy terminando. Lo más importante de la charla es esto. ¿Qué genera ojos en alerta en el ciudadano? Genera 3 cambios de comportamiento. El primero, al principio, antes de tener ojos en alerta, llamaban 300 personas al centro de monitoreo por mes. Hoy llaman 3.000. Inobjetable, mandan mensaje 3.000, número frío. Lo segundo es este, que para mí es el cambio de comportamiento más revolucionario. Miremos.
Aquellos dos. Esperando a alguno con el maletín del lado de la calle. Aquel. Está marcando el punto para una salidera. Están ahí, pero no los ves. Bueno, de eso se trata. Están, pero no están. Chorros.
Convertimos a más de la mitad de la población adulta de San Miguel en gente atenta y a 700.000 ciudadanos de otros lugares. Gente atenta que ve cosas que antes no veía, sale con el celular a atrapar Pokémones. ¿Por qué? Porque puede, tiene una herramienta, es fácil y es simple. Esto me parece lo más revolucionario. Como Oscar es la persona que atrapó los 2 delincuentes que vimos con las bicicletas, tuve la posibilidad de hablar con él porque es el vecino de un amigo. Y me dijo, vos me diste la capacitación hace 1 año. Y ¿sabés qué? Estuve esperando 1 año mi momento, 1 año. Y yo sabía que eran esos 2. Sabía. 1 año esperando su momento y atrapó 2 delincuentes. Y este es el último cambio de comportamiento, que es sobre el delincuente. Y para retratar esto hicimos un experimento social en San Miguel el año pasado. Agarramos un actor, le pusimos un televisor con un pedazo de mampostería al hombro y lo hicimos caminar nervioso por el centro de San Miguel en hora pico. A ver qué salía, a ver qué decía él también, cómo se sentía. A ver si la población realmente estaba convencida. Y salió esto, miren.
¿Está nervioso?
Miren, estamos frente a la plaza por McDonald's y pasó un tipo muy extraño y nervioso con un televisor en la mano. Para mí está robado.
Hola, estoy acá en la Catedral de San Miguel y veo un flaco que está caminando con una tele en el hombro, que es un pedazo de pared y como el soporte de la tele.
Estoy sentada en la calle Perón, 1453. Pasó un señor con una televisión y un pedazo de doboque de una pared.
Me miraban a mí y escribían. Y mandaban audio también. Miraban mucho y el celular en la mano. Eso es lo que noté. Celular en la mano, mandando mensaje en algún lado. Y bueno, cuando iba llegando ya, creo que en la tercera cuadra, me estaban esperando la policía.
Que los que tengan miedo sean los delincuentes de salir a robar y no los vecinos de salir a comprar. Esa es la ecuación que tenemos que cambiar. Y esta es la última placa y ya termino. Esto es Ojos en Alerta, el acceso directo a un contacto de WhatsApp. No es una aplicación. ¿Y cuáles son las diferencias con una aplicación? Que hay un montón de aplicaciones en toda Latinoamérica. La primera, esto no le sale plata al Estado porque es gratis. Yo lo comparto con cada municipio a través de un convenio y es gratuito. Una aplicación te sale plata por ir en desarrollo. Segundo, una aplicación hay que bajártela. Y la gente no tiene espacio en el teléfono para bajársela. Ojos en Alerta ya lo tienen abajo. Tercero, una aplicación tenés que aprender a usarla. Y nadie quiere aprender nada. Ojos en Alerta ya lo saben usar por el WhatsApp. Y último y más importante, una aplicación consume datos. Ojos en Alerta no consume datos porque es gratuito. ¿Y cómo termina esta capacitación con vecinos? Que ustedes eran vecinos. Al principio le dijimos, levante la mano quien llama al 911 y levantaron la mano 5 personas. Ahora, conociendo Ojos en Alerta, si ven una actitud sospechosa, levante la mano quien mandaría un mensaje para ayudar a su vecino. Bien, los convencí entonces. Muchas gracias.
Muchísimas gracias, Cristian Piojo Méndez. Muchísimas gracias. Bueno, súper interesante. Y con este espacio, como yo les decía, íbamos transitando de la inclusión, de la accesibilidad, al que la ciudadanía sea la que tiene el poder de tomar decisiones, que la ciudadanía participe en cómo se toman las decisiones. Y para eso vamos a hablar con 3 súper invitadas y nos va a moderar el espacio nuestro coordinador de ciudades innovadoras, César Sarrabeitia. Y las tenemos acá nuestras invitadas, Flor Cafarone de Democracia en Red, Olgui Caballero de Alma Cívica en Paraguay, y Nati Carfi, del Open Data Charter de acá de Buenos Aires. Bienvenidas, muchas gracias.
Bueno, hola, bienvenidos y bienvenidas a este panel donde vamos a intercambiar sobre un tema fundamental de lo que venimos charlando en estas 2 jornadas, que es el empoderamiento ciudadano en la toma de decisiones. Siempre hablamos de que la democracia se construye todos los días, pero el desafío de cómo hacemos que se escuchen todas las voces. Y no solo que se escuchen, sino generar los espacios y las herramientas, sobre todo, para que esas voces después se transformen en decisiones, se transformen en política pública y se transformen en la realidad. ¿Cómo hacemos que estas discusiones y estos intercambios que tenemos en espacios como este lleguen a transformarse o disparen un cambio en la realidad? Esa pregunta, por suerte, no la voy a responder yo, sino que tengo un super panel de 3 directoras ejecutivas. Natalia Carfi, directora ejecutiva de Open Data Charter. Olgui Caballero, directora ejecutiva de Alma Cívica. Y Florencia Cafarone, directora ejecutiva de Democracia en Red. La idea es hacer una primera ronda para compartir, y compartir no solo de la teoría, sino de experiencias que nos puedan compartir de sus respectivas organizaciones, de desafíos que se hayan encontrado y experiencias positivas también que nos puedan compartir de este desafío de escuchar a las voces y de alguna manera lograr que se transformen en decisiones concretas. ¿Querés iniciar, Olgui?
Ay, ¿yo? Bueno, muchas gracias. Sí, realmente quiero por ahí conectando un poco con el último espacio que tuvimos, esto de tratar de no inventar la rueda para que la gente participe o esté presente en espacios. sino que a veces la mayor innovación es simplemente lo que ya está creado, lo que ya existe, sino que ir potenciar ese trabajo, ¿verdad? Bueno, Alma Cívica nace como una organización que busca
Soon. So the microphone from the lady is disconnected. So yes. So we will be here. The microphone of the lady who's speaking from Alma is not working, is disconnected.
decidimos a fundar esta organización ya
So we
por
founded this information.
Realmente fuimos un grupo de amigos y colegas que nos venimos conociendo diferentes espacios
So
y
we have
sectores de
some
la sociedad.
friends who are working in the public sector. So we said, okay, where are these people who are taking the decision? Where do they come from? In Paraguay. So 60% of leadership who make decisions in Congress, so they come from a local participation process. So people who were in the way, they were not working in partisan politics, but they were activists. So at a given moment, they are captured and trained, and they are in they arrive to a position. How could we get to transform the way we work to enhance and promote and provide tools and discover new tools? Is by looking at and rescuing the local level. So whenever we work in the team, so we have a lot of women. It was not on purpose. So you always have one or two boys, but most of us are women. So it's overwhelming what is happening in the world, in the region, in the country, in Paraguay. So we still still in that process of understanding what democracy is about. So the government's party, dictatorships, there are many things that are taking place. So Paraguay has a stable economy, right? That's true. It could be in some cases, but really, it's too far from understanding really what democracy is about and being able to participate. And we have a reality that's overwhelming. There is something wrong going on every day, but we got to take a look with that magnifying lenses. What is happening within the communities? What's the social technology they're using? So our focus is to say, okay, how we could work. How do we potentialize that treasure we already have? Learn from that and potentialize it and improve it to connect it with other leaderships and programs. So in that pathway, so um, you have to let's say to encourage yourself to work for the good being, for the well-being of the community, right? So I'll share with you some experiences with you, some challenges that you've identified, right? Uh, so we have from Democracia Red, we've been working. Uh, so we are going through the use of technology, and we understand this is an opportunity we have for many years now, and the pandemic's left us okay, like that momentum. It's more than set up and established that how we communicate, how we participate, and do all that paperwork on an online basis. We promoted many participation processes, especially at local level, and participative ways in citizens' participation and other ways. So, well, in the last years, we've explored other ways like citizens' assemblies because we detected some challenges within the participation processes, among which mainly the council of selection, who are the people who participate there. So we have people who have certain, they're kind of far from what happens in the public realm. Some people do not have the capacity, economic capacity. Sometimes they don't have the time, nor the knowledge, or they think they're not properly trained to participate, or they don't know about the subject we would like to approach to deal with. So, citizens assembly have some meetings to solve these challenges, and also, why do we want to overcome these barriers? To approach certain complex issues in long term, and perhaps the security is an issue, will be interesting, but also climate change, other aspects that will not affect in short term, but they affect like a participative budget definition linked to infrastructure or more short-term decisions. Think about long-term policies, and you may require a greater consensus to have 100% inclusive processes with the population. That's pretty painstaking. So we have to develop a quite representative process. We summon citizens to participate through by sending letters or and getting people to register. So then we have a kind of raffle to select a type of conquerors to have the first wave of people who were selected looking for some representation from citizens in that city in particular. So uh, what happens with the elderly people? So what happens if we miss that look on the city, right? And then we want to avoid at educational level and economic level. With all those variables, we want to have a sample or a reduction of people who are going to participate. Other of the key elements is that we may have certain incentives to participants. That's a point that's extremely important. So, how to take that into practice? It is important to participate, to have people from different sectors with certain level of equality to provide a so you have boarding expenses, traveling expenses, so to work and participate and leave one person. You have um, people in charge also. So that's part of the incentive, right? So not only having persons participating, I mean, who have money. No, we want to have everyone to participate. And finally, in general, they used to have an instance in which training is taken. So that is also important. So we have people who are over-informed and people who are not that informed, but they are in the city and they have the same problems. And that is also important to work with them on the table. So that's precisely the Citizens Assembly, the ones we're proposing, have these elements, right, as pillars. So you have a lot of variables. So we could take that into the local level. But our experience was to implement so climate change culture and in partnership with other organizations in Mexico, Brazil, and Colombia. And from Democracia en Red, Democracy in Network in Mar del Plata, we developed a process where we had 50 people participating. It's quite a representative sample of the city. And we worked for 7 days in a row. So they are intensive processes. We have international processes, and in which we had 4 days in which we level the training, and we had 3 days of leveling. And well, that's a little bit the characteristics we have. of processes in which we have to get to free ourselves and have people in different conditions. People had a lot of knowledge. Well, a lot of people with knowledge with that. So,
fue interesante y tienen que estar todas las partes porque
all the parties have to be there.
tienen que colaborar más en el tema de cambio climático. Tenía mucho trabajo también de los ciudadanos.
So we had a lot of subjects with all the citizens, but not only work in the municipality.
Entendemos que no es para trabajar todas las temáticas, pero sí para trabajar algunas que realmente se requieren.
So to work with someone, they may require to deliberate, to have deeper debate.
Porque quizás todos podemos opinar sobre dónde queremos que haya una, bueno, no sé, tenga que haber la loma de burro.
So why do we have cars so fast? Why the street?
Pero de repente sobre cuestiones que tienen que ver con políticas más a mediano y largo plazo, y infraestructura.
So infrastructure, recollection of waste. So on the subject. So for those purposes, it is worth exploring these participation modes to have people in the rural areas. Yeah, okay, that's pretty good. Now we got to listen to everyone and also facilitate dynamics to really contribute with value with their own look. So thinking about tools and dynamics that can make this participation so what are the challenges and pathways? So first of all, thank you for the invitation. First, we're going to have a question here. We have participation process, and it was good enough. Participation, it impacted in the final result.
Tenemos ahí un par de manos, un no por acá, uno en proceso, allá sí. ¿Quién participó de procesos participativos?
Who participated in participative processes? And who do you think it's a waste of time? No, not a waste of time. No, a good, that was, who thinks it was something good and who thinks it was not good? So it's pretty complex.
Digamos, para cuestiones mucho más profundas se necesita más tiempo, más participación.
For deeper things, we need more knowledge.
Y también puede haber consultas
You could
ciudadanas.
have consultations that are pretty small, simple.
Y eso les quería traer. Yo soy Nati Carfi, soy la directora de la Open Data Charter, trabajo en temas de datos y gobierno
in data chart, so we have like 16 people, right? So I've been working there for 17 years, so yeah, I've seen a lot of processes there. Okay. So I wanted to bring to share with you that in the charter, but also examples from outside. So
otra pregunta para ustedes. ¿Saben lo que son los datos
for you. You know what open data is about? So we are a lot of people.
Después me preguntan, pero básicamente nosotros lo que hacemos desde la
So what we
organización
do basically from the organization is to promote the public proactive promotion of government data in formats that may be reused, not a PDF. So who was for 3 hours doing copy paste with the PDF trying to organize all that? It's a problem. So we were all there.
Entonces, ese no es un formato reutilizable, por ejemplo.
So that's not a reusable format.
A través de los procesos en los
Through
cuales
processes,
con gobiernos y organizaciones de sociedad civil, siempre ODC, la organización que lidero, trabaja en conjunto y en tándem entre
so she
gobiernos
works in a group, in a settlement. So what we always do is to try to promote participation from start of publication process policy. In the first years of open data policies, governments wanted to be cool and have their open data source. They set up websites and they began publishing what they had at hand, what they deemed important to publish. So as we said in open data, so build until they welcome. So no one downloaded anything whatsoever. So basically, there was not a connection between the citizens or the citizens' demand for data and what governments were providing. And the truth, I was an official from the government, and it's not easy to open data. It's not that you get an Excel file and you publish it. Yeah, do we have a big, great internal work within the government team to publish and to keep the open data portal. So all that effort so that political chiefs would say, okay, how many downloads do we get? Did we get no? Okay, 5. And we are investing a lot of money in that. So, so, so understanding what is the data. So I want to prioritize.
A publicar. Obviamente que igual hay que manejar expectativas, porque
so the expectation.
Y hay algunos que los gobiernos directamente ni siquiera estaban generando.
Yeah, but they were not generating data, basically. So what we proposed from Open Data Charter was to start working with subject area policies, not open source data policies. But we want to create participative processes. Let's talk about data for climate change, data for in the fight against corruption. So the gigantic subject gender. We can work different subject areas. What does that bring up? We have
y desde sociedad civil
from civil society
las organizaciones que saben
and the organizations. So specifically work with public organizations. The civil society organizations, they're going to make the demand, and then we start doing or running policies or workshops. So prioritize that. What for? Together.
A lo que gobierno necesita,
the government needs.
Lo que necesita sociedad
and what civil society needs, understanding the difficulty of publishing. Not all data sets are important and are also available. So sometimes they just lack a license to be open data, open source data. So some of them are easy to solve and other ones are not. So through participative prioritization processes of publication of data is where we manage to advance in subject area policy that would help the government to publish at local level. So we could also start working the governance, internal model, the infrastructure of data, and get to know which are the systems that are going to be used so that actors within the government may publish. Through those participative processes, we have managed to advance with different governments that are pretty uneven, like Ecuador and Uzbekistan in anti-corruption data, or similar, you know, climate change data like Chile and Uruguay working at the same time. Generally speaking, we work with several governments so that they may also connect, especially government agencies, to connect and share challenges that they may have internally, because in general, challenges are typically more common than what we think. Starting not the digital area, but internal subject area, to start asking, what do you want my data for? And it's not your data. This is the citizens' data because it's the government. This happens in Uzbekistan, Uruguay, Panama, the United States, and France. It happens everywhere. So to help ourselves and cooperate to see how we deal with those challenges, it is pretty good. Not to reinvent the wheel. What do we publish those data for? The utilization is very high, but one that's very important is to perform and develop advocacy so that the citizens may face these participating processes with participation that's meaningful enough. So it is important that that publication not only be done, but it should be kept. We have seen a lot of open data portals for governments that are shut down and turn on, shut down and turn on. We have big challenges. I'm just going to brush up on some of the things there. open community, open data communities. So we are always working with data privacy communities, not necessarily we there. So generally not. So we have a position there. So but we have to balance both rights, access to information and privacy. So the pathways from the pathway for privacy organizations, generally speaking, organizations, the first thing they did was to go after the law, the regulation framework. Then they worked in implementation. We had advocacy for the right implementation of the law. Open data organization went first for implementation. We don't have open data laws. They have very few there. So there we were learning a community and the other. So to see how was the guideline and how we add value from the implementation capacity we have, because we had portals everywhere, and the regulation capacity that it provides stability in privacy policy. So that's what we are working there. So going back to participation, so these processes, what we do is to ensure participation in the public policy, connecting the data, the demand for data, and also ensuring possible participation. That is basically one of the objectives. Just publish because of the sake of it. So, so we need to go with Octave. So to see what I have known so far, to tell you that I have seen processes. So the open data or GPA. So pretty much. So it's an organization, well.
Eso es muy importante. Y para cerrar, solamente contarles un ejemplo que vi en África, que cuando alguien quiere, lo hace, digamos. No es un proceso de participación súper profundo, pero por ejemplo en un pueblo, en Kenia, básicamente lo que hizo el intendente fue con llamadas perdidas, si sí o no, si en una plaza se iba a poner un arco de básquet o no. Entonces, no necesitas plata, no necesitas, digamos, ni siquiera internet. Si la llamada perdida iba al 01110, era no. Si la llamada perdida, ni siquiera gastaban en la llamada, era llamada perdida. ¿Entienden? O sea, no le quería hacer gastar al ciudadano más que 5 segundos. Y si era otro número, era que sí. Nada, a ver, ¿cambiaron la vida de los ciudadanos? No, pero en un pueblo chiquito esa decisión, digamos, entonces es empezar también a promover esos pequeños espacios para ir generando confianza. Si los ciudadanos ven que el arco se puso porque salieron más llamadas perdidas, empezás a generar ese como ida y vuelta, porque la confianza es la base de todos los procesos de participación. Si uno participa y después no ve el impacto, no volvés. Gracias.
Gracias. Gracias, Natalia. Tremendo. ODC hoy es una colaboración de más de 250 gobiernos y organizaciones, ¿no? Así que hay una pluralidad de voces organizacionales, personales, así que debe ser un desafío tremendo. Me resuena lo que contás de África porque desde nuestro programa de innovadores locales trabajamos con equipos en todo el sur global y las redes de cambio, que es un poco el foco que tenemos en estas jornadas, se realizan presencialmente y nos mandaban imágenes de un equipo de Zimbabue para elegir las diferentes alternativas, fueron pasando y poniendo piedritas.
Claro.
Y veíamos,
no hay que armar la mega plataforma del Guachihuau.
Hay que tener ganas, pensar lo que les
sí,
resuena.
Pero además...
Totalmente. Bueno, no nos queda tanto tiempo, pero sí me gustaría saber y que me compartan su perspectiva de estas experiencias que se dan en la realidad, ¿qué desafíos implican en el marco de un momento en el que tenemos cambios políticos, sociales y tecnológicos súper activos y súper convulsionados en este momento? No sé si querés contarnos, Olgui.
Bueno, me encantó lo que dijiste. Quiero sumar que a veces, claro, no tenemos que encontrar la fórmula del oro, o sea, de la alquimia, ¿verdad?, para que la gente participe, sino que es invitar, abrir la puerta. Al día de hoy hay demasiadas oportunidades para poder, no sé, googlear y ver qué hace Democracia en Red y preguntarle, ¿cómo hacen ustedes esto para poder, no sé, demasiados caminos hay para poder implementar herramientas, tecnologías cívicas o sociales que nos permitan hacer que la gente, pero hay que querer que la gente participe y probar. O sea, yo siempre digo que no hay un proceso de participación fallido, porque finalmente si se implementa, funciona, porque por lo menos aplicaste una metodología, ¿verdad? Y bueno, y hablando de los desafíos, hoy en día, bueno, en Paraguay, por ejemplo, estamos viviendo un retroceso muy, muy grande, donde se aprobó recientemente una ley que de alguna manera dificulta mucho el trabajo del espacio cívico y de las organizaciones de sociedad civil, porque mete como que un montón de regulaciones que ya se hacen, ¿verdad?, con la excusa de la transparencia y de que las organizaciones de sociedad tenemos que rendir cuentas. Todas las hacemos, o sea, sabemos que siempre no podemos meter la mano en el fuego por todas, evidentemente siempre hay algo que... Pero actualmente hoy en el país se rinden cuentas y se hace un montón de procesos ante el Estado y ante la ciudadanía y ante el donante también, pero lastimosamente esta narrativa, este discurso político que viene también de una avanzada de pisar derechos ya conquistados, bueno, Paraguay no sale afuera de eso y se embarca en la cruzada
That, and we embark in the crusade of approving a law and pass a law, a bill that would restrict civil society's participation to be able to develop its activities and be able to receive resources. This goes hand in hand with cooperation, and it's affecting us all. I know that Peru, they passed that law last week, right? And then they're going to regulate that. It's a similar law to Russia and Nicaragua. People in Nicaragua say, well, that's how we began. We used to legalizing processes of somehow coercion in people's participation. So when you start to block it somehow. So when you want to do something, anyone can do it except us. So the NGOs versus the whole world. So today is against us. Tomorrow, they came for this person, they're gonna come for these others. But I didn't say anything because I was not that person. But exactly what's happening there, we have to keep an eye on alert, because apart from the fact that it's difficult to make people understand that, or to make evident that participation is a right, and it's also an obligation. Also because by omission, we could let things happen. So we also have restrictions. They want to say is to silence the voices of people. So we have different manners. So the challenge today that comes to this movement from north to south, I don't know really where it comes from, but it comes from everywhere now. So how do we strengthen the muscle without weakening in the process? Because you get tired to be right there, right in the first line, working, sustaining what you're doing from the base. We have organizations that are bigger and more international, who are in contact with networks. For them, it's not going to be that difficult because it's going to have ways, but we have grassroots organizations. I mean, just to fix something in the community or the neighborhood, that's going to be a problem. I mean, in terms of the implementation of these type of regulations. So this is a trend that's been coming. I hope it wouldn't take place here, but the truth is that in many countries it is taking place already. The excuse, of course, is after transparency. Well, you already have a transparency mechanism there, but this is what really happening. They are basically limiting, hindering the civic space. So So as civil society status in the world, it's concerning. I mean, it's quite worrying. If we look at national level, local level, I come from a country that I could tell you that, but it's not pretty different to what is happening. The pattern is being repeated. So throughout the world, that doesn't mean that we're going to stay still. Okay, we have to look for ways, but we got to pay attention to stop these restriction or limit, curtail. All right, participation is a right, but it's very important. It's also a commitment, right? So we have Anna Hari who said that. So the essence of human rights is the right to have rights, and a fundamental right is to make advocacy, have an influence in the public uh, route with tools, and make that advocacy effective. Natalia, you want to share some of the challenges and implementation right now? Yeah, I would say that what Olga was saying is something that what happens in Paraguay. So, so we are in a weaker position. So, uh, so we have international report. So you have other places. In a moment also, for those of us who work in democracy, citizens participation, in a context in which the public agenda in favor of these words. So, since we are out of place, so obviously, so it is difficult and it's also a challenge to promote citizens participation, open government, among other aspects. So, this is a takeaway. So this is to pay attention to how we gotta keep an eye open. We always gotta keep that eyes in alert, right? For organizations, but more than anything else, that's how it is taken. As what we discussed in the panel. Really, the positive thing about now, where do we see these opportunities? From the local perspective in Argentina, and from people who are today in the government, I think it's a big responsibility already, and it's not easy. But I think that today at the present, those who are in those spaces, who also have their own agendas, they have a very important role because probably civil society is going to be more difficult for them to be present. But I know, but it might happen anyways. So, and that I think the role is very important to continue promoting and sustaining it. So, in environments in which it's not easy to do, and we have other priorities in which, I don't know, we have a response of what's going on in the social media. So, what am I going to have a participatory process? So, in the data. So, what people want in Twitter. So, it is more difficult. The role of the person is difficult to sustain those agendas. And well, and to push forward what we have been doing for many years, what was built. So it is important. So I have a lot of value there that it would be good not to miss it. Is the work done every year. So that's what we could have. So we have like waves, winds of change, but we are the bees in the grassroots level. But well, just that. And this proactive position that Olive share is not to stay still. We got to move. In a moving scenario, we got to move ourselves. Not to end. Just to tell you a little bit. So, no, really, nothing that could be different to what was just said. We've seen countries in which there were national administration changes that were pretty strong and hostile to this agenda. Subnational level kept the fire on. So no, we know we can do it. We can continue working in this agenda and civil society. And yes, what Oliver says, kind of copy paste of that to stop or make the work of civil societies organizations more difficult. So in Latin America, but it's also happening in other parts of the world. So we could see that in all the global south. So we need resistance, cooperations, active listening, and we need to understand that yes, the networks like this one, ISP, like thousands of networks that are out there, look for them, connect to them, talk to them. So that's pretty much. And you're not alone. You're not an island. Right. Then exchange networks. Right. 100%. For my part, I would like to take away to participate, but participate with tools, with set up mechanisms, with data, so that that participation could be effective, not to lose our voices in the air. If you had to have like one last reflection, I know if it's you're that fan of, but if we would close in a Twitter X network, how of empowering citizens empowerment and mechanisms, which central idea, which would be the main takeaway in a phrase? I would like to say now, since we were talking about in AI, artificial intelligence, everything that that brings along and the tools is pretty good. But also we got to be careful with that. I like the expression of it is pretty well used in humor. Not the artificial intelligence, but artisans intelligence, handcrafts intelligence. So to share in the neighborhood. So we discussed about that to connect again with our neighbor, to generate links of trust, and to talk to the person who does not think as we do. So to be able to promote spaces for participation, to have that collaboration spirit, and to highlight the democratic values that rule your country or your constitution and what you might believe. So it is necessary to build community, and you cannot do it on your own. You can't work alone. You can only work with those who believe and think like we do. I say that to myself because for me it is difficult because it's easier to work with a person who thinks like you. It is faster, right? But we need to work, and that requires resources that you didn't have. We not generate money, time we don't have yet, but there are times. So let's use artisans' intelligence. So to connect ourselves at community level. I had said artificial intelligence, but it's genuine intelligence, genuine intelligence. So we talk about singularity in technology. Let's talk about plurality and the search of that similarity. So you want to leave us? Well, I'm just going to be brief. So I really liked what Nati brought up of cooperation right now. I think we're going to be needing it. And regardless, I mean, the sector we are in, it is important to also break that concept. You work in government, civil society, or corporate sector or political parties. This is a moment. It's pretty good to cooperate, all of us, and to take off the tax we have. So it's a good point. I like to look the consensus beyond the context and looking for dialogue among people. So that's the only thing. Okay, thank you. Okay, what about you, Nati? We always talk about from Open Data Charter about data interoperability. We work with data, of course, so it is important. And some years ago, I said that as a joke in a panel, and then they wrote to me from the World Bank if I need to write a blog about it, and it wasn't that funny. The concept of people interoperability, not just through technology, we can generate networks or systems that would interoperate, but the need so that people, in fact, would get together and can talk and interoperate. So if this is a tweet, a blue sky, perhaps, I don't know how you say that, to be there. So it will be interoperability of people. Let's get connected. Okay, pretty good. So I wanted to thank you. Thank you.
Sí.
Okay.
Ocupamos la silla vacía.
So we're going to use the empty chair now.
Tenemos unos
If
minutos.
we have still a couple of minutes, if you would like to comment, to contribute, lunch is not going to be before anyways. So we can talk for a few more minutes. Does anyone have a contribution, a question, share your experience in the organization? So we know that some people raise their hands in participation processes. We do have experiences here. Okay. Anyone? No? Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Nobody?
Esa es como la aplicación.
That's the application, right?
Ahí te acercamos al micrófono.
Nos están escuchando por streaming y si no sale el audio.
So we need the microphone, please. All right. Volunteer in Mundo Sur is an organization that collected data from feminicides and assassination of women. Among these organizations, we have a common methodology to collect that data. One of the biggest problems we want to collect data from governments. They use different methodologies. They upload them in a different manner. It is very difficult after like to analyze or compare them. When you work with municipalities, do you look to connect among themselves so they have a common methodology? I mean, to generate a standard, I mean, or do you just follow? Okay, well, there are some data sets upon which we already have some standards that are the ones that are internationally promoted public purchases. Feminicides, I don't know if you know about that, Silvana Fumeva's working on feminicides. She has that data along with Latin American colleagues to generate a standard for the publication of that data. To tell you that that exists is to lie because that doesn't exist. So in the research, okay, we have a series of investigations and research. We have some cases in which the definition of feminicide was the judge of that district would get all the cases of assassination. This is this yes, not this yes. This applies. This doesn't apply. So that was the medium, the way they did it. So we don't have a standard regional level or it's been mapped, but we do have a work to generate one. Sometimes what they do is when we have a standard, we promote it. So in this case in particular, knowing that the standards exist, we promote the work of standardization. So very likely, we have good practices, cases of bad practices. So, but well, that doesn't exist today so far.
¿Algún otro aporte? Allá.
Después te paso el mail todo.
I'll send you the email and everything so you can share information.
No, yo quería compartir.
Okay, I just wanted to share. I'm Cata. I am a city council representative in San Isidro's municipality. So, as city's participation, I'll share with you how we choose, how we select, how we are elected. So, the way we represent ourselves is that the affiliation to the party, right? Just 1 minute. So, pretty good.
Gracias. Bueno, qué honor.
Thank you. What an honor. So, as I said, with San Isidro, it's a community party in activities for 23 years now. What we do to elect ourselves to decide who the candidates will be representing is that the affiliates, for a week, they get an email with which is called
participación ciudadana en donde los afiliados creen en el partido, se motivan a postularse. Yo empecé siendo asesora legislativa y terminé siendo
to participate there. I renewed that, yes, for the second time. So anyone who's affiliated may return and be part of the political system transformation. I agree with the networks are fundamental. You can have great ideas to open deliberating councils, but if you have a network with the organizations, so what does the citizen need? What do you propose? What do you want to know? I can open the data, the amount of trees in San Isidro, but if citizens are asking for which process or mechanism I have for them to participate in the decision-making process on the coast, or if they want space to play soccer, for example, it's difficult for that process to be successful. Well, I really thank you. It was a pleasure. I'm about to go to Mar del Plata region for the climate change. Something else I wanted to share with you for the youth is called Banca 25. I'm the vice president of the steering council. So in San Isidro, we have 24 banks. The bank number 25 are the youth or the group. So we have the schools for deliberating council. They propose ideas and projects that work afterwards with the construction of citizens and participation. It all depends on what their name is. So they are city council representatives. They present the concept. Then we have the commission. So because that project has to come, and we think that that's a small part of participation. At first, it's a great day to understand what the youth, the young people want, and afterwards, so that they can have in the citizens construction. How do I submit a project before an entity, before, I mean, or the system? So this is a program that if you work within the city council representatives, you see all these things that go on there. It's pretty good that the youth could be city council representatives for a day and collect their questions and opinions. So, and then that they can really debate. There are some projects that are not going to advance because the budget is not infinite, but it is pretty good to understand what the youth are concerned about and to add them on the democratic um, life. Incredible. Okay, thank you.
Gracias por ese aporte, un lujo.
Thank you for your contribution and for using the chair number 5. I think with that we could definitely close the panel. I would like to thank our panelists. We invite you to go now for lunch and to continue with the afternoon workshops. Thank you.
¿Nos sacamos una foto?
Okay, shall we make a picture now? Let's take a picture now. Okay.